Hi, my name is Nancy Jacobsohn. I prefer to be called Nan, thank you. And I am a sculptor, and I would like to give you a tutorial on thinking about hands in sculpture. It's my experience that my students struggle a lot with hands, and I like to help them out by showing them an easy way to think about hands. I am very much a fan of having you look at what it is you want to sculpture in terms of basic shapes. So we're going to use our own hand as a guide for this. And for the sake of ease, let's go ahead and make it human-sized. Look at your hand. I want you to ignore your fingers for the moment. And I want you to just look at your palm and ask yourself, what shape is your palm? Okay, I'm looking at it from the front, and to me, it looks basically like a square, equidistant all around, ignoring fingers and thumb. When I look at it from the side, it's basically wedge-shaped. So I'm going to create that shape first thing. For sake of time, I've already created a wedge shape, and I've even gone to the trouble of creating the markings and the wrinkles on the inside of it. You can wait till later to do that, or you can do it up front. Lots of times it's in the shape of an M. The next thing we need to think about are actually the fingers. Now, they're a lot of fun. And the way you're going to make fingers is, first and foremost, as I told you, I like to think about things. What shape is a finger? To me, it looks like a cylinder. Well, when I'm looking at something and asking what shape it is, I'm also asking the second question, which is, how is it different from a cylinder? Well, when I'm looking at my finger, I'm seeing that it's slightly narrower at the top than it is at the bottom. So what I want to do is create a coil that mirrors that same shape. So I'm taking my clay and I'm cutting and cut off a piece, and I'm going to start with the index finger. Looking at that finger again, I'm looking at the end of the finger. And the index finger, in particular, tends to be tapered. So, in order to show that taper, I'm going to take the end of my coil and I'm going to roll it around just a little bit at the end to create a taper, like this. Now, if you are a tool junkie the way I am, you love having new tools. Well, I'm going to introduce to you a very exotic tool that is a great tool for working with hands. This is it. It's a popsicle stick. And what that popsicle stick allows me to do, well, let me back up a little bit. Before I get to that, is what parts of this finger make it look like a finger? Well, I'm going to say that the knuckles, and there's two that you need to pay attention to right away, and the fingernail. Well, that's where my popsicle stick comes in. I'm going to use the edge of the popsicle stick, roll it around, use the other edge for the other side, and that creates a nail. For the knuckles, the first knuckle isn't quite as prominent as the second, so I'm using the edge of the popsicle stick to make wrinkles where that finger needs to bend. And then the second one is, there's a bit more, and again I'm using the popsicle stick to create those wrinkles where the knuckle needs to bend, like so. Pretty decent looking finger. Now, I recognize that this finger is longer than what the finger is, but I want to keep that extra clay. So set it aside and go to the next finger. Finger we're not going to look at individually because of the connotations involved with it. How is it different than the finger we just did? Well, what I'm seeing is that it's taller, longer. And also, maybe in your case, it is in mine anyway, it is a little tiny bit bigger. So I'm going to roll that one out in the same way I did the first one. Making it a bit wider and a bit taller. I'm going back to making the fingernail. With my exotic tool. Again, it has 2 knuckles. The first knuckle, I'm just going to make just a little suggestion. The second knuckle is going to be a bit bigger in a basically circular kind of way. And that's finger number 2. And if I place it beside this one, it's going to be a little taller. Now, I will give you one hint. Fingers are not round. They tend to be almost squared off. So to make it even a little bit realistic, I'm going to pinch that in just a bit there. Also, you can do it later or you can do it now, but it's handy to make right in back of the knuckle a little bit of a cut. Not very deep, just a little bit of a cut, so that when it comes time, if you want to bend the finger, you're going to be able to have that. Okay? Number 3 is, and forgive my arthritic hands, my fingers get a little wonky, but it's very similar to the index finger. So I'm going to roll that out. And it's going to be approximately the same size. And rather than put you through all of it, I'm just going to borrow one I've already done and see how it shapes up there. And again, I'm looking for placement, and the index finger is slightly longer than that next one, what we're going to call the ring finger. We're going to go through the whole process again, and then we have the little finger. And looking at your hand, of course I've got the wrong hand. If you look at this, you can see that that little finger goes just kind of up to that knuckle. All right, now I'm going to take all 4 of these in the right configuration. I'm going to turn this over. That's my palm that I made. And I'm going to judge the distance from the knuckle, that'd be here, to overlap it. And then I'm going to push this extra length of clay we provided for into the palm. Now I want to create these knuckles, so I'm going to gradually just kind of work those in with a suggestion, if you'd like, of a bone that comes from those fingers into the hand. Now let me mention something since we're looking at my hand at the moment. I am not a young person anymore, and you'll see that my hand has some features that may be different than yours. My hand reflects aging, and one of the things that it does, if we want to take a look at it, is aside from I have some fingers that want to go rogue on me as far as doing their own bending, notice that the knuckles get larger with older people. Some you can choose to make them misshapen or not, that's up to you. But they also lose some of the fat. So notice how the space in between the knuckles can be almost concave. So when you are doing a hand, take into consideration the age of the person that you're doing. Babies and very small children often have dimples instead of knuckles because they have so much fat in their fingers. So age does play a part in it. All right, now on the other side, let me make provision for these cuts so that they can be bent. I'm going to work this in to the back of the fingers. You can take a tool and kind of emphasize that joining place where the palm and the fingers come together. Okay, so here we have it. Now, what do we have left? The thumb. Well, the thumb is not a finger. It is very different. For one thing, when you look at its orientation to the palm, if you consider the palm a square, then the thumb comes off of the bottom corner. So it's opposite. Don't make this mistake where you put the little finger and the thumb on the same side. It's going to be on the opposite side as the little finger. So it's going to come off of this bottom corner down here. Now a thumb, how is it different than fingers? Let's take a look at it. For one thing, you only have one obvious bending knuckle, and then there's another knuckle here, and there's another knuckle down here, but they don't have that same signature that the other two do. So we're going to concentrate on this part. It's wider and fatter, and it's not straight. Notice how it does a curve out to the side. Now I have noticed that some people's thumbs are more prominent with that than others. So again, I've rolled out the appropriate cylinder, and like the index finger, it's different than the other fingers in that it has a prominent taper to the end of it. So I'm going to just roll this around on here to create that taper that I want. I'm going to create the bigger nail. So I'm going to kind of skip over the popsicle stick to make it wider. And then create that one prominent knuckle by just pushing the clay up in a circular way. Again, I've made it longer than what it actually would be. And now I'm going to bend it to duplicate this. And not only does it have that sideways orientation and that come in at the bottom of your piece, it also, and let's put it on the right side after I had that to say, it also faces outward, where your fingers like this are straight up and down facing at you. The thumb is facing out to the side. And I look to see how it's oriented with the other fingers, and so I want it to come approximately to there. And now I'm going to take that extra clay and I'm going to work it into the palm, because see how the palm, if I'm using the right one, the palm has a lot of extra flesh here where the thumb comes into play. And I'll work it in here. Now I'm going to do a disclaimer here. I'm going to say this is a very simplified hand. If you choose to start your hand this way, hands are individual, just like every person is individual. There's age involved, there's anomalies. Some people will have longer or shorter fingers, and there are a lot of extra details that you can add in. So here is one that is a little more finished, and you can see how I've chosen to give a gesture to the hand. Hands can be equally expressive as an entire sculpture. A hand can stand on its own, but it is a wonderful, valuable tool to use when you're doing your human sculptures, as far as emphasizing the gesture and the emotion you wish to convey. I hope this video is helpful to you and gives you a place to start. Thank you. Okay, all right, I've shown you how to make a life-size hand, but how often do you make a life-size sculpture? Probably not very often. Let's say you have a small piece that you're not sure that you would be as successful in creating a hand in that more intense way. So I would say, think about a mitten. Think what a mitten is shaped like. First, you've got the big rounded side of the mitten that comes to a taper here, where it's going to go around your wrist theoretically. And let's make this mitten so that it's kind of a little pointy at the top. Not real pointy, but you know, it has definitely more than just a rounded shape. All right. And then in every mitten, you have to have the thumb. So I'm going to squeeze out the thumb here. Now the advantage to doing this kind of a hand when you're doing a smaller sculpture is that you don't have to worry about the pieces being as easily broken off or coming loose. Now, look at the hand. We've gotten the basic shape. If this, consider this your mitten, slightly pointed at the top, and you've got the thumb coming off of the bottom here. Look at the way that a hand will bend so that you have knuckles here, and then the end of the fingers. So look at the hand as being a shape, a squared off shape. So this is the first knuckle, basically, and this becomes the second knuckle, right here. So let's just say you wanted a slight bend like this. I'll take out a little bit of this in the center here to show where our palm begins. We can still show that excess, not excess, but that extra flesh around the thumb where it comes in, like so. Now on the other side, we need to just divide the fingers a little bit farther from the center, because we're going to have the little finger over here and it's going to be slightly smaller. So to create the idea of a hand, we want those knuckles, so we can create a little squared off portion here that shows the fingers coming in from the hand. And then I'm using a rubber tool here. We can separate those fingers by showing some roundness rather than just having the a line there. Give it a little more. So I'm going to want to show some difference in the length. So I'll cut away. Thumbs on this side, so the little finger's on the opposite side over here. And the index finger is going to be a little shorter on this side. This is a start. So let's just say that I wanted to show maybe I'm going to add a little more to that thumb. But I think you can see that the mitten approach could work almost as well. You'll have to do a little more work with your tools to get that mitten look, but you can, I think, obviously see the hand evolving. So if it's a small sculpture that you need to do a small hand from, consider the mitten approach. And if you have a slightly larger hand, I think you can get an incredible amount of detail using the first approach I gave you. So, your mitten hand. Okay, thank you.